Sometimes I have an impression that our lives are like patchwork blankets, and there are many experiences interwoven. Some of them are positive, happy experiences, and others are sad and shattering. Sometimes, especially recently in the COVID-19 pandemic, many of us have lost someone we've known, someone we've loved. And even in the period before the person dies, sometimes we feel some extreme emotions, especially in the COVID-19 pandemic. Some of us had to witness our loved ones being on the ventilator before they died. And this is something that is very difficult to describe even. I work with people who have suffered through a lot. People who have experienced something that we call anticipatory grief. If you have ever witnessed someone very important to you dying, if you suffered with these people in the last moments, then it is very likely that you've also experienced anticipatory grief. There are 5 emotions which are very common in people experiencing anticipatory grief. Let's talk about them today. Whenever someone very dear to us, a life partner, parent, our sibling or a child, is going to die soon, our suffering starts. There is that strange misconception that we suffer only after someone dies. It is very often true when someone dies unexpectedly in a car crash, for example. But whenever there is someone very sick, suffering from cancer, for instance, spending long days, weeks, months in a hospital, then we suffer with them. And we are under the influence of very strong emotions. One of which, probably the most common one, is fear. Whenever we witness someone very important to us dying, it's absolutely natural that we are afraid, because there is the big unknown. We don't know what is going to happen. We don't know what is going to happen with the loved one, with the person who is dying. But also we don't know what is going to happen to us, especially if we have been very close with the dying person. It's perfectly natural for us to be afraid of our future. We don't want to suffer, we don't want to feel sad, we don't want to feel lonely, and we can be afraid of all of these emotions. Don't beat yourself up if this is something you experience. We very often feel that we should be, first of all, concentrated on the dying loved one, on the dying person. And perhaps it's true, but it doesn't mean that our own mind and our own emotions stop working. It's quite the contrary. We experience a lot of really extreme emotions. If fear is one of them, let yourself feel it. Allow yourself being afraid of what's going to happen. Many people I work with who are experiencing anticipatory grief, they feel guilt. This is something that is very often called by psychologists survivor's guilt. This is the emotion we experience when we participate in a car crash or an airplane crash, when there are a lot of people who died and we are one of the very few who survived. And on the logical level, we know that there is nothing to feel guilty about. Just like when there is someone very important to you, someone you love, dying, on the logical level, on the conscious level, you may well be aware that it's not your fault that you are not the one dying, that you are healthy and that you are going to live on. And yet, somehow, guilt is the feeling that comes to us. The question remains, why is it so? For a psychologist, the answer to this question is not so difficult. Emotions are far from being logical. Actually, very often we say that emotions are stupid. In a way, they are. They have absolutely nothing to do with logical thinking. So even if you know that you are not to be blamed for the fact that someone you love is dying, you still may feel guilty. And it's okay to feel that, as long as you know that it's not your decision that someone is dying. It's not your doing that someone is dying. You have done nothing to make this person suffer right now. Just bear this thought in mind. Keep it in your memory. And whenever this feeling of guilt comes back to you, and it can come back to you like a boomerang, just remind yourself of that. Recall this thought. Even say it out loud. Another emotion that comes to us very often when we experience anticipatory grief is anger. We are angry. Sometimes we are angry with the higher power. Let's call it God. If God is almighty, if God is full of love, how could He let this happen? Right? And you have believed in God your whole life, and now you have this feeling that He's abandoned you. Naturally, you feel angry. Sometimes we are angry with ourselves. We are angry because we haven't somehow stopped the loved one from dying. We haven't prevented it. And we know that there is nothing we can do to stop it. Naturally, it makes us feel angry. And sometimes, when we experience anticipatory grief, we are also angry with the dying person. A lot of patients experience that. This feeling, this emotion, can come to you out of nowhere. And once again, on the conscious level, you may be aware of the fact that no one would ever ask for it to die in such a way, to be dying right now, to be seriously ill and to suffer. This is the logical thinking. But sometimes our emotions, they are stronger than that. And still this anger is present with us, and it can be strong. If this feeling comes to you, let yourself feel that, as long as it doesn't poison you, and as long as it doesn't poison the relationship you have with the dying person. Perhaps one of the most obvious and one of the most expected emotions that we feel when someone dies is sadness. And it's very much justified by people around us when we are sad after someone dies. But the thing is that when someone very important to us is still alive, but is going to die soon, or is suffering, has been in a hospital for a very long time, it's also natural to be sad then. And don't let yourself believe in something that many people could tell you, that, hey, he or she is still alive. Enjoy this time you have together. You have no right to be sad. They can tell you that. But here's what. Who are they to tell you what you are supposed to feel? If you feel sad right now, it means that perhaps this is exactly what you should be feeling. This is exactly what you need right now. From the psychological perspective, this is a part of a very natural process of preparing yourself for a very painful change in your life, for a loss. This way, our mind is preparing itself to handle this experience. And this is one of these experiences you may not be able to avoid. So all you can do is let yourself, or let your mind, prepare itself so that you can survive it in a better shape. There is nothing wrong about being sad even before someone you love dies. There is one emotion that comes to us whenever we experience anticipatory grief, that we feel very strange about. Whenever someone very important to you is going to die, you are filled with loads and loads of emotions, usually negative emotions. But hear this, also when you are about to experience something really good and important in your life, like getting married, like moving on to a bigger house, like expecting a baby, you are filled with plenty of positive emotions. And what do these situations have in common? In all of these situations, you may feel a very strong desire to talk to someone about it. To talk about your emotions, about your fears, about your feelings, about what you expect to happen next. And sometimes the people around us, they have this taboo that if the person who you love has not died yet, what is there to talk about? Perhaps you should wait until they die, and then perhaps you will be allowed kindly to express your emotions. Well, from the psychological perspective, whenever you feel that you are loaded with all of these emotions and that you can't handle them, talking about them, talking about this feeling, about this experience, is a great way to vent these emotions. It's a healthy way of getting rid of some of these emotions. Now, don't get me wrong, it will not help you get rid of all of them, but it will make it so much easier for you to carry this burden. Granted, it's best to talk about it to someone you love, to someone you trust completely. But, as it sometimes happens, perhaps there isn't a person like this in your life any longer. In such situations, make sure to contact a psychologist, because they are trained to handle that kind of situations, and you can trust them completely. You can be sure that they are not going to gossip about it. When you go to a psychologist, this is a safe environment when you can talk absolutely about everything that comes to your mind. I hope this video will help you handle this difficult situation and this experience that you are going through right now. Whatever happens, I want you to know that these emotions, when they come to you for a reason. Of course, it's difficult to give someone advice in a situation like this, but from my perspective, I can tell you that it's best not to avoid these emotions. It's natural that they come to you. Let yourself feel them and let them go away afterwards. If what you are experiencing right now is indeed anticipatory grief, make sure to watch my other video on this topic. I hope it will make the whole process much easier for you. My name is Sebastian Antonowicz, and I hope this video has helped.